Taoiseach, can I ask you, in view of what I've heard from you as leader of Fine Gael, the leader of Fianna Fáil and the leader of Sinn Féin for the first 40 minutes of your question time, to admit, number one, not only the IRA paramilitary campaign was an unmitigated disaster for the people of Northern Ireland, so was the Loyalist paramilitary campaign, so were the sectarian gunmen and bombers who inflicted massive suffering and division on a suffering people. So were the predecessors of Mr Cameron, whom you will meet in a few days, and the British governments, and the oppression and the lack of any solution that they preferred. And so were the successive governments in this state, including governments of your own party, which were incapable for decades of, in any sense, constructing anything here except a sectarian state with huge economic crisis that was a repellent to people in Northern Ireland, particularly certainly people in the Protestant community. And can I ask you if you will agree, Taoiseach, that what you, between the lot of you, have delivered is in reality a power-sharing executive in Northern Ireland that is an institutionalisation of sectarian division, that thrives on sectarian division, and that will use sectarian division to bolster the position of the component parts when it suits them, and that they are capable of doing that. And can I ask you, Taoiseach, if you will agree with me that ordinary people in the North, suffering enormous economic hardship, and indeed problems related still to sectarian division, how they might just feel cynical and revolted if they listen to this first 40 minutes with the leaders of Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin and Fine Gael raking over the past, but apparently incapable of learning from the past. And lastly, can I ask you, Taoiseach, to focus on the issues confronting the working class people in Northern Ireland at the present time. And if you will raise with the British Prime Minister, Cameron, the acute suffering that the economic policy of austerity that his government is imposing and is being implemented through that same power-sharing executive and carried out on the people of Northern Ireland. And Taoiseach, will you make him aware, if he doesn't know, of the huge poverty that exists, worse than anywhere in the United Kingdom? Fewer adults as a percentage of the workforce employed in Northern Ireland compared to the United Kingdom, and income distribution in the north the most unequal in any region of the European Union as a whole. So can I finish by asking you, Taoiseach, if you will agree that in the north in particular, because a very disproportionately high section of the economy depends on the public sector, that savage cuts to the public sector imposed by the austerity of the Conservative Liberal government in London and implemented by the power-sharing executive, that is having a devastating effect on the lives, living standards, jobs and services of the working class communities in Northern Ireland. Would you agree that these are real, vibrant and critical issues that need to be brought centre stage? And will you ask the Prime Minister to desist from austerity and to change policy with investment instead in the North to resolve the problems, including the problem of sectarianism, which that would help to overcome? Taoiseach.
Well, clearly, Deputy Higgins, we've come a very long way in Northern Ireland, where the people of the 6 counties are entitled to vote in a democratic election process to elect who they wish to the Assembly. And clearly it took a very long time to arrive at a position where the Executive and the Assembly is in operation, and where the trust has gone to a point where particular responsibilities have been and are being devolved to the Assembly for decision-making in respect of dealing with the issues in Northern Ireland. Now, I have to say to you that I have the privilege of attending at the North-South Ministerial Council. But these are not talking shops to the extent that that people might oftentimes imagine. For instance, there is a great deal of cooperation, Deputy Higgins, in respect, let's say, of the common CAP reform, which is a major issue now of the multi-financial framework and what may come of that if agreement can be reached this weekend. That would mean that the sort of general agenda that Cyprus are following through with might in part be concluded, which would allow the Irish presidency to finish that off as an issue, if that actually takes place. But, for instance, we had a person appointed from Northern Ireland onto the permanent representation in Brussels, so that the Executive and the Assembly and the people would be fully informed and fully acquainted of their concerns and issues as this process goes through. And when you speak to those groups, for instance, in the agri sector, they're very interested, obviously, in the impact that's being made here in jobs and exports and the growing of the economy. Clearly, as a small part of the European Union, we would say that the agri sector has never been recognised to the full extent that it can deliver jobs and growth in the economy. Minister McEntee, for instance, was able to report to the North-South Ministerial about the ash tree disease and what they're doing in cooperating with Northern Ireland on an issue that's part of the economy and part of jobs. So that level of cooperation is there. For instance, in the Southwestern Hospital in Enniskillen, which is a state-of-the-art facility, they want cooperation with Sligo and Altnagelvin with Letterkenny. The taxpayer here, by decision of the government, funds in part the radiotherapy unit that's going in there. And we've had discussions before about contributions for the major roadway connecting Derry and beyond. But these are issues that are real and practical. Of course, you're right when you say that the traditional impact for jobs was in the public sector area in Northern Ireland because of a range of circumstances. But clearly, and the troubles, as they're oftentimes referred to, limited the confidence for investment and the creation of jobs. Now, we had discussions at the North-South Council about the intention in regard to a reduction of the corporation tax rate levels that apply in Northern Ireland, which would make, if that were to happen and be approved by the Chancellor across the water, would make the island of Ireland, from a corporate tax perspective, in the same area. So, we contribute, for instance, to many of the major tourism entities. We are very supportive of Derry being selected as the city of culture, of Derry being the location for the Flaccio Nahera next year, which are two major events now in that city, which will attract an enormous gathering, if I dare use that word, to the region, which will be of benefit for the economy and for jobs. I think that's important. And when we look at the case where we discussed banks and NAMA with them, the Minister for Finance was able to report to the members present of our views and progress being made there. And when I see Deputy Higgins, First Minister Robinson and Deputy First Minister McGuinness working in the interests of the communities and being very forthright about that, when they decide to go to China with their trade mission or to meet the personnel over there, that we appoint our own ambassador, Ambassador Kelleher, in Beijing, to work with them. Obviously, speaking fluent Chinese, he's got an advantage over many in understanding the mentality and the approach, and that's in the interests of, giving them the opportunity to attract jobs to Northern Ireland for young men and young women across the country. So, for instance, when I spoke to Deputy Martin before here at Question Time about the strategic partnership agreement that we have with the British government, and one of the issues that they actually discussed there now was the putting in of an amendment to their own Green Investment Bank, which would allow investment to take place in Ireland without territorial boundary, if you know what I mean. In other words, that they could invest here, provided that the opportunity was there for in the area of renewable energy, sustainable jobs, but that there might be the possibility of selling direct into the British market. And now Minister Rabbitt's concluding work on a memorandum of understanding with his counterpart across the water, Minister Henry, in that regard, and that would be of interest both north and south in terms of investment in green, developmental, sustainable opportunities. I think you'd support that. So it's obviously, Deputy Higgins, it's an issue that's got to be worked on constantly. And through the work of the Count Corla and Speaker Hay, we have the Parliamentary Forum. Through the work of the sectoral groups under the North-South Ministerial Council, there are actually a number of very valid proposals being followed through with an impact north and south. Minister Quinn in the area of education is dealing with a counterpart in a very realistic way on a number of issues in education which are of importance north and south here. So the answer, of course, is jobs and growth. Northern Ireland has suffered more than many other areas throughout the European Union, but it's a case of not lying back and not lying down in front of the wave of cynicism that may be out there. Is to do something about it, and good politics and clear decisions can make an impact, and that's why we all have a duty to work with the communities and to see that investment is put in where it's going to make an impact for jobs and for growth and for economic development. So the level of cooperation, Deputy Higgins, is very high between the departments and the ministers, and we hope to continue on that, hopefully with an impact on jobs down here and in Northern Ireland. And those examples that I've given you of great cooperation at departmental, ministerial and international level, I hope will pay benefit in due course.
Thank you.